Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back to Rocky Watches Movies. Today we're heading out into the desert for some underground thrills with the 1990 cult classic Tremors. This monster movie blended horror, comedy, and action in a way that's kept us coming back for decades. But how much do you really know about what went on behind the scenes? Well, hold on tight and watch your step. It's time for 20 things you never knew about Tremors. Co-writer S.S. Wilson credited some scrap paper and the Armed Forces Film Division for his inspiration for the giant worm beasts terrorizing Nevada. He explained that he had once worked as an editor at a Navy base in the middle of the Mojave Desert. On weekends, when the gunnery ranges were not in use, he was allowed to go hiking. During one such hike, while climbing over large boulders, he wondered what might happen if something was lurking beneath the ground and he could not get off the rock. Wilson noted down the thought, returned to it years later, and the rest became history. Frank Herbert's Dune has also been cited as an influence, with both stories featuring enormous subterranean worms in the desert and characters seeking safety on large rock formations. The film initially entered pre-production under the working title Land Sharks. However, the filmmakers soon discovered that Saturday Night Live had already popularized a recurring sketch featuring a character called Land Shark, a comedic parody of Jaws. To avoid confusion and ensure their horror comedy would stand on its own, they decided to retitle the film. Other early titles considered were Beneath Perfection and Dead Silence. Before finalizing the Graboids' appearance, several concepts were tested. The initial plan was to depict them with completely dry skin, but the glossy paint made them look as though they were coated in lacquer. Another concept involved giving the Graboids an outer shell, which they would retract above ground to reveal a smaller, slimy inner worm. This design, however, drew laughter due to its humorous phallic appearance. A further idea was to give the Graboids the ability to accurately mimic sounds, a skill they would use to lure unsuspecting victims. While no real creatures resemble the Graboids in the animal kingdom, Mother Nature still played a major role in their creation. Special effects artists Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. drew inspiration from elephants, crocodiles, dinosaurs, rhinos, slugs, and catfish when sketching out their designs. Curiously, earthworms were left off the list, as the pair considered them far too dull. Writer Wilson, in particular, had grown weary of the sci-fi genre's typical monster origin cliches. He explained that creatures were usually portrayed as radioactive, the result of a biological experiment, visitors from outer space or beings that had simply always existed. He argued those were the only options audiences were ever given. For this reason, Tremors deliberately avoided providing any explanation for the creature's origins, though later films suggested the man-eaters were prehistoric reptiles. The original opening was far darker than what we got, Val relieving himself over the edge of a canyon. In an early version, the town drunk's donkey meets a grisly fate, devoured by a graboid while trapped in its rickety wooden pen. Though this sequence was fully filmed, it was ultimately cut from the final release, leaving us with the lighter comedic start instead. In one chilling scene, a ravenous graboid devours a middle-aged doctor, traps his terrified wife inside their station wagon, and drags the vehicle underground. Initially, director Ron Underwood had planned to film the car sinking into a pit filled with vermiculite, an earthy dirt-like substance. However, the material unexpectedly hardened, forcing the crew to improvise. Their solution was subtlety. After a brief struggle, the final cut switches to a distant, wide-angle shot of two headlight beams piercing the starry sky before fading. This suggestion of a deadly off-screen burial was achieved through some last-minute ingenuity. To create the film's signature sense of subterranean menace, the crew ingeniously chained boat boys to a truck and dragged them through carefully constructed underground troughs. This clever practical effect produced a terrifyingly convincing tunnelling motion, complete with dirt flying at high speed, giving audiences the sense that the monstrous creatures were barreling just beneath the desert floor. The original ending of Tremors differed from the final cut. In the script, Valentine and Rhonda did not actually become a couple. As Val and Earl set off for Bixby, they realise they have left their cigarette lighter behind in perfection. Discovering that Rhonda still has it, they immediately turn back, implying a romantic connection between Val and Rhonda. Test audiences, however, felt this was unsatisfying, prompting director Underwood to quickly reshoot the final minutes to include the anticipated kiss. Only one full-length Graboid model was constructed. We see it when an overzealous one meets its end by fatally slamming into a cement wall. The audience are then treated to the sight of a massive one-of-a-kind prop, meticulously crafted to showcase every pebbly detail of the Graboid's hide. James Gunn's campy horror comedy Slither includes a subtle nod to Tremors. The film's heroine is depicted as a teacher at Earl Bassett Community School, directly referencing Fred Ward's beloved character from the original movie. For reasons that remain unclear, a character from the original screenplay was removed before production even started. Known as Viola, she was a cantankerous old woman living in perfection, with her constantly barking Rottweiler. In the original, she is attacked by an unseen Graboid, which bursts through the floor of her house before killing her off-screen. Finding a location took some time, as the filmmakers needed flat desert surrounded by mountains with some rock formations, and a cliff edge leading down to a plain to top it off. After finding the location of the Alabama Hills near Lone Pine, production designer Ivo Cristante had 2 months to construct all the buildings. The market had to be renamed to Chang's after they hired Chinese actor Victor Wong, instead of a Vietnamese as originally planned. The roof of it was actually mechanical, and was able to be reset for more takes after its cave-in. During the filming of the movie's climactic showdown, Finn Carter's stunt double failed to show up, leaving a critical scene in jeopardy. Rather than delay production, director Ron Underwood stepped in, donning a wig and performing a few frantic frames himself to fill the gap. Unfortunately, the footage was ultimately cut from the final film. The Motion Picture Association of America, renowned or sometimes notorious for its film rating system, has a specific guideline for PG-13 films. Scripts are permitted to include one non-sexual use of the F-word. Tremors initially received an R rating, but rather than rewriting dialogue and reshooting scenes, the filmmakers opted for creative overdubbing in post-production to bypass the restrictive rating. The original cut featured around 20 uses of the F-word. In the final version, much of Val's profane dialogue was replaced with milder lines. The shrill roar of the subterranean Graboids proved so effective that it has been reused in numerous other films. Movies to feature the Graboid sound effect include Mosquito, Starship Troopers, Ants, and most recently Kong Skull Island, among others. A strong score with a western twang adds a distinctive flavour to the film. However, Ernest Troost, officially credited as the composer, actually contributed relatively little of the music heard in the final cut. The majority was composed by Robert Falk, after much of Troost's work was removed. Falk recalled that Troost must have had a very good lawyer, as his contract stipulated that he would receive screen credit if any of his music was used. According to a tie-in website following the events of the original film, researchers studying the subterranean menace officially designated the creatures with a Latin name, Caderus mexicana, cementing them as a unique and previously undiscovered species, though fictional. Following the success of the original, Tremors grew into a full-fledged franchise, spanning films and television. Tremors 2 Aftershocks shifted the action to Mexico, where Earl and new ally Grady faced the evolution of the Graboids into fast-moving shriekers. Tremors 3 Back to Perfection returned to Nevada and introduced the airborne ass blasters, further expanding the creature's life cycle. The story then jumped back in time with Tremors 4, The Legend Begins, a prequel set in the 1800s, with Michael Gross playing Burt Gummer's ancestor. The franchise roared back with Tremors 5 Bloodlines, which transported the action to South Africa, followed by Tremors A Cold Day in Hell, set in the Arctic. Most recently, Tremors Shrieker Island from 2020 brought Burt's long-running saga to a dramatic close. Alongside the films, Tremors the series aired briefly in 2003 on the Sci-Fi Channel, continuing the adventures in Perfection, Nevada, though it was cancelled after just one season. The Museum of Western Film History in Lone Pine, California, offers fans of Tremors a must-see treat. A striking display that includes an enormous prop graboid head, alongside a meticulously crafted scale model of Chang's Market. For anyone travelling through Eastern California, it's a perfect opportunity to step into the world of Tremors. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about Tremors. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.